Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Nabi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain. So, what I wanted to do tonight is something that I like to do in community settings, especially in settings where it's likely to be families. So, husbands and wives, moms and dads, and their children. Is I like to tell stories. Because I think stories are something which generally piques people's interest. People are interested in the stories. They're interested in the protagonist of the story and what's going to happen to them. And what lessons can we learn from whatever transpires in the story. And in many cases, stories, they provide us with myriad lessons. Not just one or two lessons. And usually the lessons are varied. They're not lessons that are specific to one category, but they usually teach us a lot of things about life, a lot of things about ourselves, a lot of things about our situations and so on. So I want to tell a story. But this story that I'm going to tell is a little bit different because the story is a metaphor. You guys know what a metaphor is? Who will tell us what a metaphor is? A metaphor is basically a symbol. It's something which really doesn't represent what it is. It represents something else. It points to something else. And so I'm going to give you the story, and then I want you to help me parse through what the story represents. What is the story talking about? Why is the story relevant? And then we're going to talk about some of the lessons we can take from the story. So the story goes like this. Picture a man, his wife, and their kids. And they are preparing for a journey. They're packing up all of their things and loading up their mid-sized SUV to go on a long-anticipated, very important journey that they have to do. They don't really have a choice. So they pack up their car and they set out on their journey, and there they are speeding down the road. And as they speed down the road, all of a sudden, a man jumps out in front of them in the middle of the highway. And obviously you can imagine the father who's driving the car, the husband who's driving the car, he kind of panics, as any one of us would, because none of us wants to hit someone. So he immediately tries to what? To stop the vehicle and avert the collision. At the same time, trying to avoid ending up in the ditch. So once he is able to stop the car, avert the collision, bring the car to a halt, like many of us, they're going to want to know why. Wouldn't you want to know why? Why this person's in the middle of the road? Certainly you would. So he gets out of the car, and he's in a heightened emotional state, as most of us would be. Because this person's not only putting his life at risk, he's putting the life of what? Of his family at risk. Also putting what? Their belongings at risk, their vehicle at risk. So the man wants to have some words with this guy. What's wrong with you? What are you doing? Why are you in the middle of the road? Are you trying to kill yourself? Do you have a death wish? Are you trying to kill me? Are you trying to kill my family? Person says, oh, I'm so sorry. I really apologize. And I saw you on this journey, and I wanted to get your attention. And I didn't know any other way to get your attention except by doing this very dramatic act of getting out in front of you. And, after all of this, let me just, before we go any further, let me just introduce myself. I am Wealth. And I see you and your beautiful family on this journey, and I want to accompany you on this journey. I want to come along for the ride. And you want me to be with you on this journey because I can make you rich. I can make it possible for you to buy whatever you want. You're on this journey, your kids are going to want things. Your wife is going to want things. I can make that possible. Make it possible for you to give them whatever they desire. There are things that you want. I can make that happen as well. You want me on this journey. Can I come along with you? But before you answer, I just want to say, I want to let you know, I want to warn you, I'm going to be high maintenance. I'm going to occupy a lot of space in the vehicle. I'm going to be extra, but it'll be worth it because I'm going to make you rich. So the man, he says, okay, I can't make a call on this by myself. I want to consult with my family. Goes to his wife and children. He says, what do you think? Wealth wants to come along for the ride. His wife and children say, of course, yeah, let him come in. We want wealth with us. Wealth will let us what? Buy things. Do things that people who don't have wealth can't do. So let's let wealth in the car. So the man says, okay. And they welcome wealth into the car. Their already loaded vehicle, mid-size SUV. They let him into the car to accompany him on their journey. And they get on and they get set out and they're back on the road and on their way. Happy as can be on this journey, long anticipated, accompanied by wealth. All of a sudden, a few minutes down the road, the same exact thing happens. Another man in the middle of the road, flailing his arms. And again, the man tries to stop abruptly, swerves to avert the collision, gets out, angry. What are you doing? Do you have a death wish? Are you trying to kill yourself? Are you trying to kill me? Trying to kill my family? What are you doing? He says, look, I'm sorry. I apologize. Just wanted to get your attention. Wanted to accompany you on your journey. Before we go any further, let me introduce myself. I am Fame. I'm Fame, and I want to accompany you on your journey. I want to come along for the ride. And you want me with you because I can make you famous. I can make you and your wife and your kids a household name. Everybody will know you everywhere you go. People will point their fingers at you. People want to take a picture of you. People want to take pictures with you. I can do that for you. You want to have me with you, but before you make your decision, I just want to warn you, I'm going to be extra. I'm going to occupy a lot of space. I'm high maintenance. You're going to have to give me a lot of attention, but it'll be worth it because you'll be famous. Man says, I got to think this over. Let me consult my family. Consults his family. Fame wants to join us. These are the benefits and advantages of it. What do you think? Come on, we want to be famous. We want to be a household name. We want everybody to know our name. Everywhere we go, people are saying, oh, give them the best table in the restaurant. Oh, your meal is on the house because you're so-and-so and such and such. We want to be famous, certainly. He says, but we got all our stuff. We got this mid-size SUV. We don't want to be weighed down. It's going to slow us down on our journey, perhaps. And we already have wealth in the vehicle. He says, look, we'll make room. We'll make room for fame. So they let Fame in the car. They get back on the road. Driving down the road, happy as can be. We're going to finally get this journey underway. And not only are we going to do the journey that we've been waiting to do, but we're going to do it with wealth and fame. A few minutes down the road, the same exact thing happens. Another man in the middle of the road, flailing his arms, wanting to get his attention, swerves to avert the collision, gets out angry, wants answers. Who are you? What are you doing? Do you have a death wish? Are you trying to kill me? Trying to kill my family? Trying to kill yourself? Man says, I apologize. Just wanted to get your attention. Same deal. Before we go any further, let me warn you, or let me introduce myself. I am power. I am influence. I'd like to accompany you on your journey and make you powerful. Make you someone who can make people do what you want them to do, when you want them to do it, how you want them to do it. I can put you in the driver's seat for real if you let me come with you on your journey. Don't you want to be able to push people around and not be pushed around? I can do that for you. But before you make your decision, I want to warn you, I'm extra. I'm high maintenance. I'm going to occupy a lot of space. I don't even know if I can fit in that car with all the stuff you have and all the passengers you have. Says, well, let me go consult my family. Consults his family and says, hey, we got a lot of stuff. We've got fame. We've got wealth. I don't know, can we really afford to welcome influence and power? They say, look, we'll make room. We'll get rid of some of this luggage. We'll leave it right here by the side of the road. Everybody wants to be in charge. Everyone wants to have control and power and influence and be to tell people what to do. We need that for this journey. Certainly we should let him in. So they do that. They actually remove some of their belongings that they're going to need on the journey, the provisions they're going to need. They remove that to invite wealth into the car. Influence, power into the car. So they continue driving down the road, continuing on this journey. What do you think happens? What do you think happens? There's a fourth man. But this man is standing on the side of the road. He's not desperate. He just puts his hand up and tries to get the driver's attention. The driver, out of curiosity, pulls off to see what the man wants. And the man says, one, to get your attention. Oh, I know those guys. Those are the Dunya brothers. Fame, wealth, and power. Hey guys, how you doing? Anyway, listen. I'm Deen. I'm religion. Saw you driving with your family on this very important journey. And I'd like to accompany you. I'm asking politely. And I want to accompany you to give you good counsel. I want to accompany you to help you on your journey, to be in your service, not to be a burden. Says, I can help you and be a good counselor for you. And I can help you deal with the Dunya brothers. Wealth, power, and fame. I know them very well. I know how to help you handle them and not be handled by them. I can be useful. I could be a benefit. I won't be any trouble. Man says, I don't know. There's just no space. Come on, mid-size SUV. I got my kids. I got my wife. I got the 3 Dunya brothers. I don't know. I don't know if we have space. He says, trust me. I'll be of help to you and you can make space for me. I, Dean, I can go in the glove compartment. You can put me on the roof rack. You can put me in the trunk. You can put me in the undercarriage. You can put me anywhere, and I will what? I will conform myself to my surroundings, and all of that to help you and to be a good counselor for you. The man says, I don't know. I don't want to make this decision by myself. I always consult my family. Let me consult my family. Goes back to his family. What do you guys think? I say, no, I don't know. We just don't have enough space, and we just feel like it'll be a burden. It'll be an inconvenience. If we let him come, he'll tell us how and when we can spend our money. How and when and where and in what way we should use our influence. Right? He'll tell us what to do with our fame. He's going to try to boss us around. We don't want that. We want to have a fun journey. We want to have fun. So the man goes back to Dean and says, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we can't bring you along for the ride. And Dean says, okay, I think you're going to regret it, but it's your decision, and I respect your decision. The man continues on, and he comes up to a checkpoint. And there are many cars ahead, so he's inching closer to the checkpoint. He's looking ahead to see what's happening. And so each car that stops, there are certain officers that come and talk to the people inside the vehicles. Some of these officers are very well dressed. They have very handsome and pleasant appearances. They speak kindly to the people in the cars. Sometimes they escort them out of the cars very gently, very respectfully. And sometimes they speak to the people and they let them what? Continue on their way. But other cars, a different type of officer comes to them. That officer is wearing a uniform they're shabbily dressed. They have a foul smell. They have a menacing expression. They don't speak nicely to the people in the cars, and sometimes they drag them out of the cars, kicking and screaming, and take them off somewhere and put them under arrest. So as the man inches closer and closer to the checkpoint, an officer comes and begins to what? To search feverishly through the vehicle. Looks in the glove compartment, looks on the roof rack, looks in the trunk, looks in the undercarriage. The man gets nervous. Officer, can you just tell me what it is that you're looking for? And maybe I can tell you if I have it or not. I can tell you where to find it. You're making me nervous. The officer says, sir, I'm looking for deen. I'm looking for religion. That's what we look for at this checkpoint. I see wealth. I see fame. I see power and influence. I don't see deen. The man says, oh, we left deen back on the highway about 15 minutes back. If you give me a few moments, I'll go back and get him. He says, oh, no. When people get here, they don't go back. They don't go back. This is the end of the line. But I'm going to place you under arrest, but I'm going to let your family, I'm going to let them go on and continue their journey with wealth and fame and power and with no deen. But I'm going to hold you accountable and responsible for what they do for the rest of the journey with wealth, with power, with fame, and no deen. Brothers and sisters, what is this metaphor? What is this metaphor? What is the journey? Life. What is the checkpoint? Death. Who are the officers in those nice uniforms speaking pleasantly? The angels of mercy. And who were those shabbily dressed officers roughing up people, dragging them away, kicking and screaming? The angels of punishment. Brothers and sisters, this story is our story. These choices are the choices you and I make every day. And the result at the checkpoint is going to be determined by those choices. And there's a number of lessons that we can take away from the story. We'll mention them ala ujala. We'll mention them quickly. The first thing I want to mention or point to is, if you notice in the story, every time one of the Dunya brothers asked to enter the car, to join the journey, they were honest. And what did they say? High maintenance, extra, and occupy a lot of what? A lot of space. Brothers and sisters, this is the reality of the dunya. The dunya, if it has its way, it wants all of you. It wants all of you. It wants to make you its slave. Wants to occupy all of the space. Wants to get inside of your heart and push everything, including Allah, out of your heart. This is the reality of dunya. To the point that dunya wants to make you its slave. Wants to make you, how does that happen? Wants to make it where your number one concern is dunya. The number one basis for your decisions is dunya. The number one motivator for your action and inaction is dunya. And when that happens, you become a slave of the dunya. And the Prophet talked about this in the hadith when he said, Ta'isa abdul dinar, ta'isa abdul dirham. Perish, ruined is the slave of the dollar. Ruined is the slave of the cent. It can happen. And there's no such thing as having two masters. We're all forced to choose. Choose to have Allah as our master or the dunya as our master. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, مَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. Allah has not made for any person two hearts in his chest. Meaning what? You can only have one heart that serves one master. And that's perhaps why the Prophet reportedly used to pray. He used to say, Allahumma ahyini miskinan, wa amitni miskinan, wa hshurni fi zumrat al-masakin. He used to pray, Oh Allah, let me live as a pauper. Let me die as a pauper. And resurrect me with the paupers. Didn't want to be rich. Didn't want to have lots of things. Because those things do what? They try to make you their slave. To the point that the Prophet ﷺ would be given a gold bar in the morning. And he would have, and by the evening, he would have what? He would have given it away. Tayyib, the second lesson, or the second question, I guess, that would come to mind is, how do we reconcile between this and our human reality? I mean, we need money, right? We need money to live. Influence can allow us to ensure our religious freedom, right? People can get into certain positions of power and facilitate things for Muslims that wouldn't be facilitated if they weren't in those positions of power. Influence can be useful for Muslims, right? And fame can put us in a position to spread Islam and serve our religion. That the person who is only known to 10 people cannot do as much for Islam as the person who's known by 10,000 people or 10 million people. Is that not so? And so these things, these things from dunya, the dunya brothers, they can be beneficial. So how can we reconcile between what we just talked about and the reality of what? The usefulness, the utility of dunya. The answer comes, in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He told us in the Quran, He said, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Don't forget your share of the dunya. So how do we reconcile between that and what we just heard? And so the answer is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't tell us that we can't use the dunya. We can't have the dunya. We have to totally divorce ourselves from the dunya. But what He does tell us is that we should be slaves of Allah who use the dunya to draw us closer to Allah. And that's why the same ayah, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا, don't forget your share of the dunya, that is a part of an ayah which starts out with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, وَابْتَغِي فِيمَا أَتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. He says, but seek through that which Allah has given you, the home of the hereafter. Then He says, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Use the dunya to draw closer to Allah, and what? And you can enjoy some of it as well. Not prohibiting you from enjoying it, but be careful to be a slave of Allah, not a slave of the dunya. The dunya should be in your hand, not what? Not in your heart. Slave number 3. Sometimes the people closest to you can be your enemies. It can happen. A wife can be the enemy of her husband. A husband can be the enemy of his wife. Parents can be the enemy of their kids, and kids can be the enemy of their parents, even though they love each other and they're not being enemies on purpose. Sometimes they do it what? Inadvertently. They do it without even realizing it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, He says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, inna min azwajikum wa uladikum aduwwan lakum fahdharuhum. O you who believe, indeed your spouses and children, there may be enemies for you in them, so beware of them. Notice in the story, the man kept going back to his wife and children, asking them for their advice. Did they give him good advice? Did they give him good counsel? They didn't. And they weren't intentionally trying to give him bad counsel. They weren't intentionally trying to ruin him. But sometimes what happens is that we, as loved ones of someone else, we may not give them the best advice. We don't give them the advice with their best interest in mind. And what I mean by their best interest, I mean their best spiritual interest. What's good for them in the hereafter? Sometimes we give them the advice that's good for what? That's good for us. When he went to them and told them, hey, we can have fame and we can have wealth and we can have this and we can have that, they didn't think to themselves, is this good for you? As the one who's ultimately responsible for us? Are we helping you fulfill your responsibility? They were thinking about what? What that would mean for them. And so what we all have to do, husbands and wives, moms and dads, kids, we all have to counsel each other, counsel our loved ones with their best interests in mind. What's good for you, Dad? What's good for you, Mom? What's good for you, husband? What's good for you, wife? I could ask you to do this and you would do it. But if you did it, Allah would be displeased. So I'm not going to ask you to do that. Because if we don't behave like this, putting the other person's, our loved ones' best interest at heart, we're actually enemies for them, as Allah talks about in the Quran. That can happen even though we don't want it to happen. We love them. We don't want to hurt them, but we can hurt them by giving them bad counsel. Another lesson, that if you notice, this man had all three of the dunya brothers. He had a good share of the dunya. But when he got to that checkpoint, did they come to his aid? Did they come to his defense? Say, hey, where are you taking our friend? We're not going to have that. We're not going to tolerate that. Did they stick up for him? Dunya did not benefit him in the least when Allah sent the angel of death for him. But you know what would have benefited him? What would have benefited him? Deen, religion. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us not to be too concerned about something, not to chase after something that when it really counts, it won't benefit us. Allah tells us in the Quran, He says, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. He talks about the day of judgment, talks about that checkpoint, and says that's the day when wealth and sons will not benefit anyone. They won't stand up for you. But you know what will benefit the person? The one who comes with what? With a pure heart, with religion. Another lesson is that, and this is an important one, many of us, brothers and sisters, when we think about religion, and this is something important for us to teach our kids, many of us, when we think about religion, we think of religion as something which is difficult. It's burdensome. It's a chore. Some of us grew up and we conditioned ourselves that this is just the way life is, and we do it because we're Muslims and that's what Muslims do. But many of our kids who are coming up, they can't just do it because that's what Muslims do. It has to make sense to them, and it doesn't make sense, which is why many of them are what? Leaving the deen. Becoming part-time Muslims or becoming what? Muslims in name only. This perception that we have of the religion being difficult, being hard, being burdensome, being a chore, being judgery, that's the wrong mindset. It's the wrong perception. When the man pulled over and Dean asked to get in the car, what did Dean say that was different from what the Dunya brothers said? What did Dean say? I'm easygoing. I'll go in the glove box. I'll go in the roof rack. I'll go in the undercarriage. I'll go in the trunk. I'll make myself fit wherever you have space. He didn't say I'm high maintenance, I'm difficult, I'm demanding. Deen isn't like that. Deen works with us. Even though we're Allah's slaves, He doesn't make our deen difficult. He doesn't make religion difficult. He's not over-demanding. He's not domineering and asking us for things that we can't give. What does Allah say? He says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah does not place on a soul a burden greater than it can bear. He tells us, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah as much as you can. Do the best you can. He tells us, وَمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. He says, Allah has not placed any hardship for you in religion. And the Prophet ﷺ used to tell his companions, سَدِّدُوا وَقَارِبُوا. He would say, do the best. Do everything and do it perfectly. وَقَارِبُوا. And if you can't do the best you can. And he told Imran ibn Hussein, one of his companions, he told him, he said, Ya Imran, salli qa'iman. He said, pray standing. Why? Because Muslims are required to pray standing. فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِيعْ. But sometimes, doesn't a Muslim sometimes have a problem in his knee? Doesn't that happen? Problem in his back? Problem in his ankle? Maybe he has a real bad stomach issue and he can't pray standing. The Prophet said, فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِيعْ فَقَائِدًا. If you can't pray standing, then what? Sit down. فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِيعْ فَعَلَى جَنْبٍ. And if you can't pray sitting, you can lie down on your side. You see how Deen works with us. Deen works with us and accommodates what? Our circumstances. Even to the point, look how accommodating Deen is. There are things, brothers and sisters, are haram. They're haram. Things that Muslims can't consume. Things that Muslims can't wear. Things that Muslims can't do. Things that Muslims can't say. But suppose a person was in a situation where they were absolutely compelled due to necessity to do those things or say those things or wear those things. What does our religion say? You can do it. You can say it. You can eat those things. And there are many ayat in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say something along the lines of فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ. But he who is compelled due to necessity, neither desiring the illegal nor consuming it excessively, there is no sin upon him. Because why? Because of necessity. Because it's coerced. And from this, the scholars of Islam from all four madahib, they have a principle that they've taken from this and other verses in hadith that says, al-darurat tubih al-mahdurat. That extreme necessity will legalize that which is normally illegal. You guys see how religion works with us? We have to understand this, and more importantly, our kids have to understand this. Our religion isn't difficult. It's the way that we have perceived it. That's our perception. That's a wrong perception. As the Prophet said, ad-deenu yusr. Religion is easygoing. This is the right perception. That's the perception that he had. That's why his companions, they loved the deen. It wasn't drudgery to them. The Prophet wouldn't say, oh, we have to pray. It's time for pray. Okay, make the adhan. Hurry up. Let's get this out of the way. The Prophet would say, arihna biha ya Bilal. Oh Bilal, bring peace to us with the adhan. Let us pray to find what? Peace. Let's get away from this dunya and let's turn to something that will fill our hearts with what? With peace. It was never drudgery for them. Because why? The different perception, different mindset. Number 6. I got these two and we're going to close. Every person, brothers and sisters, if you notice, when he got to the checkpoint and the officer said, we're looking for Deen, the man said, oh, we left him back 15 minutes, back in the road. Give me some time, I'll go back and get him and I'll bring him back to you. teaches us, brothers and sisters, that every person who dies, and when they die, they're not doing the right things, they'll want to what? They'll want to come back. But will anybody be allowed to come back? Just like the man told him, this is the end of the line. Nobody goes back. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَنفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّ لَوْ لَا أَخَّرْتَنِي إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ قَرِيبٍ فَأَصَّدَّقَ وَأَكُنْ مِنَ الصَّادِقِينَ. مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا وَاللَّهُ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. He says, and spend, O believer, O Muslim, spend a portion, not everything, but a portion of what we have provided for you before death comes to you. Basically, the meaning of the ayah is do good deeds. Do as much good as you can before death comes to you. And you say, because you haven't prepared yourself by doing good deeds, oh Allah, if you would only give me respite, give me some time, let me go back. فَأَصَّدَّقْ, I'll give charity, and I'll be from the righteous. I'll do deeds other than the deeds I did. But what does Allah say? وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا. Allah will not delay the death of any person once their time to die has come. And Allah is all aware of what you do. The good you do, and the good that you could do, but you choose not to do. Last one, number 7. If you remember at the end of the story, very end, the man says, hey, I want to go back and get Dean. I'll bring him back to you. The guy says, no, this is the end of the line. But you know what? I'm going to let your family go on. But I'm going to hold you what? What did he tell him? He told him, I'm going to hold you responsible. They're going to go ahead with life. They're going to have fame and wealth and power, but they're not going to have Deen, and they're going to do things. And you're going to be responsible for those things. I'm going to hold you accountable. This is an important lesson for us as parents. Here, we're being taught that we're responsible for these kids. We're responsible for these kids. We're going to be held accountable for these kids. And the number one thing we're going to be responsible for is not feeding them, not clothing them, not educating them. It's going to be what? Their religion. Nurturing faith in the hearts of these kids. Making them love Allah. Making them want to be good Muslims. But Muslims better than what? Better than us. That's our responsibility, and that's what we're going to be asked about. We're going to be held accountable for. As the Prophet said in the hadith, he said, كُلُّكُمْ رَاءٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولًا رَعِيَّتِهِ. He said, all of you are shepherds, and each and every one of you is going to be asked about his flock. A man is a shepherd over his household. His wife and his children, he's going to be asked about them, held responsible for them. And a woman is responsible for her household and her husband's kids, and she's going to be asked about them. And so this is the thing that we have to reflect upon. This is the thing we have to reflect upon. We have to reflect upon this responsibility. And we have to take a step back and look at ourselves and say, am I fulfilling that responsibility? When I meet Allah, He's going to ask me about my wife. Ask you what about your wife? Did you create a Muslim family with your wife? Did you encourage your wife to be a good Muslimah? Did you teach your wife? Did you teach your kids? Did you encourage them to be good practicing Muslims? These are questions we're going to be asked, and any person who's going to be asked a question should prepare an answer. And be better prepared to answer than the man in the story. This is our life. These are the same choices we're making every day. The good thing for us is that we haven't got to the checkpoint yet. And at any time, we can make a U-turn. And we can say, hey, fame, it was nice knowing you. Get out of the car. Wealth, it was nice knowing you. Get out of the car. Influence, it was nice knowing you. Get out of the car. And we can say, Dean, hey, hop in. Come along for the ride. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.